But hey, folks, I'm gonna tell you something. There is no rule on how you serve food.
Well,
It's,
you could put this on here and stick it back in the oven if you chose to do it.
You sure could.
Or actually in a pit barrel, you could put the rack in there instead of hanging and do it that way as well.
Look at
Oh
that.
yeah, look at that.
Look at that. Oh my goodness. Oh my goodness. Look at that. Look at those chunks. That preserve keeps the peach chunks in it. Oh my gosh. Oh my gosh. Pete, get your camera and get a picture of that. I'd hate to lose that.
People on the product. And I think for us, we've had some really good retailers. We were just talking about one today that came on with us, Owl's Nest Barbecue. He's awesome. But he sold a lot of product, but he's passionate about it. Yep. He talks about it. He educates his people, his staff, everybody on it.
Right, here we go. Welcome to the show. I'm Steve Rape. With me, Pete Brandon, the Owl's Nest Barbecue Catch-Up Show, Monday night. What's up, buddy?
What's going on, Steve?
Got a great show tonight. I guarantee you. Pete, 16 days to Christmas.
It's coming fast.
Are you a slacker? I am. Man, I am, Pete. I'm slacking.
Thank God I have a wonderful wife. Because of her, I'm not a big slacker.
I'm dragging. I gotta pull it together. I've got to pull it together. 23 days to, you know what? January 1st, 1925. 1925.
2025.
I'm sorry, 2025. January 1st, 2025. And the reason I got confused, I did a little research today. Do you know what was invented in 1925? 100 years ago?
I don't know. I can't imagine. It could have been anything.
The Brannock device. Do you know? Do you everybody at home? Do you know what the Brannock device is? And I guarantee you, every person listening that can hear my voice, can see my face, has used the Brannock device one time in their life, or their family members have used it. You know what the Brannock device is? When you buy shoes and you go into a shoe store and you don't know what your size is, you put your foot into the Brannock device. 100 years old in 2025, 100 years old. Charles Brannock invented that. Worst tornado ever to hit the United States was in 1925. The tri-state tornado, it killed 649 people. Missouri, Illinois, and Indiana.
Yeah.
3 states.
Yep.
It's back when climate change was really bad, wasn't it?
I've read about it. I mean, read about it before, because, you know, in different times when we've had tornadoes, the histories of them.
They always bring it up, don't they?
They sure do.
Just up the street, 1925, John Scopes. Does that name ring a bell? Pete, your local history now. You got to.
I'm not a local guy.
Turning that. Not talking to that microphone so we can hear you.
I'm not a local guy.
That's right. Ray County, Tennessee, getting any better? John Scopes, Ray County, monkeys. The John Scopes was arrested in 1925 for teaching the theory of evolution in the state of Tennessee, which was illegal, and was arrested, which led to the famous Scopes monkey trial in Ray County. Have you made that
And now
Have you made that visit up there to Ray County Courthouse?
Connie and I have been there.
That's
and she knows that. She reads a lot. So
amazing piece of history there.
Yeah.
I mean, you had some of the greatest attorneys in the United States history came down to argue and to defend that piece of history right there. The circuit breaker was invented in 1925. How easy did that make our home? Right? The
No
circuit
doubt.
breaker. Guess who the college football champion was in 1925?
So let's see. It would have been what is it? Sweet. I can't think of the name of the one I was trying to think
Swanee?
of. Swanee.
No, that was 1911.
Was it? Well, I knew Swanee.
1925, Alabama Crimson Tide.
Oh, there you go.
1925. And guess what famous celebrity was born in 1925? And he's still with us today. Dick Van Dyke.
No kidding.
And I've got a big one coming up for I got two big ones coming up for our guest here in just a second. We're going to bring him in right now. Now, folks, we are continuing our active coverage of prime rib and Chateaubriand for the month of December. And I tell you who I've got. We have got a pioneer in the barbecue industry on the internet. This guy literally invented barbecue on the internet. He's a creator of AmazingRibs.com, one of the top websites visited by millions of people looking for barbecue information. He is not only a legitimate food scientist, he's also a member of the National Barbecue Hall of Fame. Live from Chicago, it's our very own Meathead. Meathead, how are you, sir?
I'm great. Steve, Pete, it's good to be back with you guys. I haven't been here in a while, and I miss you.
Well,
I got to ask you, you said this is the catch-up show. I thought we were talking about prime rib.
Not ketchup. Ketchup.
Oh, catch up.
It's a southern catch.
It's our southern twang.
So you mentioned the Scopes trial. Just about 2 months ago, the Goodman Theater here in Chicago staged the play Inherit the Wind, which is about, and the movie Inherit the Wind is just marvelous. And if you've never seen it, it was just a fascinating event in American history, pitting the two brilliant lawyers and the whole question of religion and science versus science, and wonderful play. And I think, I'm not sure on this, you might have to check, but if you're doing 1925, I think sliced bread was invented in 1925. I'm not absolutely certain. You can Google that, but and also you mentioned Dick Van Dyke. There's a video of him now on YouTube dancing just on this summer. It's 99 years old, in his backyard, accompanied by Coldplay. And it's just beautiful. And he's still as sharp as they ever were. And he can shuffle off the old, soft shoe, no shoe, barefoot.
Well, what's so ironic that he and Julie Andrews are still alive?
Yeah.
Mary Poppins.
Yeah. And one more thing about your intro here. You said my website's one of the top. It is the top. There's no website that has as much traffic or as much information. I mean, there's over 2,000 free pages of recipes and technique and product reviews on AmazingRibs.com.
So I got to tell you, I looked it up, and it's pretty interesting because actually it came out July 7th, 1928.
Oh,
but originally he was working on it in 1912,
wow.
Right? And then in 1917, a fire destroyed the prototype. And that's how it ended up going and getting the winner to where it was.
Okay.
So
1928.
Pretty cool story behind that.
Sliced bread's not even been around 100 years.
Also, 1925 was the year Al Capone in your neighborhood took over the bootlegging and illegal liquor distribution. And Meathead, for all of us in the barbecue world, and this is going to be a big deal next year, I assure you, we will all sit here a year from now talking about all the activities. What famous barbecue restaurant opened in 1925 here in the South? And he's a friend of yours.
Would that be in Decatur, Alabama?
Yes, it would be.
Bob Gibson?
Yes.
I
Ha!
knew that.
Run by your fellow Hall of Famer, Chris Lilly.
It's a destination. There's two of them in Decatur. I think they've franchised one or two around the country, but the original, or not, it's not the original, but it's the older one, is a destination. And of course, they're most famous for their Alabama white sauce, which has been imitated and duplicated and replicated. And I'm pretty sure I was the first one to publish my version. And Chris told me, when I asked him, did I come close? He said, I can't say. It's close enough. So.
Well, it's in his book. He puts it in his book. But it's good. It's good. So I thought that was pretty neat. The barbecue angle to the last 100 years. 100 years. 2025. And you know what? You know who was born in 2027 or 1927 that's still with us today? My mother-in-law.
That's when my father was.
Barbara's mother. She's 98.
Wow.
And doing good. Just had new teeth. New teeth put in.
I'm sad to say my mother died last month at 99 and a half.
Wow. Are you kidding?
Yeah. It was we knew it was coming, but it was still, pretty rough. But
wow. 99 and a half.
I'm glad to be here with you. And I'm glad we're talking about prime rib and Chateaubriand, because that's good eats.
Boy, it is. That's good eats. Well, you got good genes. You're like a sea turtle. We were with us a long time.
I'm sorry, I didn't follow that.
I said you've got good genes. If your mom lived to 99 and a half.
Yeah.
I mean, that's sea turtle. That's sea turtle territory.
I didn't catch the sea turtle reference.
Hey, okay. We're gonna do prime rib and Chateaubriand, you guys. And last week, Meathead, we had David Bosk on, who is another close friend of yours.
Brilliant.
And
brilliant.
You've heard of what is it, 6.5 degrees to Kevin Bacon? It's the same with Meathead, except it's 1.5 degrees because everybody's been around Meathead. You should have seen him real quick. 2017, I'm down in Orange Beach, Alabama.
I was there.
We're at the World Food Championships,
mm-hmm.
And here comes this guy through the crowd, and he's followed by an entourage. And who is it? Meathead.
Oh, geez.
Oh, you were followed by everybody. You
I
were
don't
making
remember any entourage.
He was nice.
That was a nice time. That event has really grown up. I haven't been there since 2017, but I was just looking at some video of it, and it's really turned into a fine event. And there's some really good cooking going on down there. And one of the things I really like about it, and this is a topic that I've been trying to address. In fact, I have a new book coming out May 13. It's called The Meathead Method. And in it, I try to talk. There's as with the last book, the first half is a textbook. And there's a lot of technique and method and science and that sort of thing in the first half. The second half, the recipes, I've tried to go outside the box, which is what you find at that World Food Championship, and bring in Asian and Mexican and French flavors and ingredients. And I think, and I'm doing a presentation at the National Barbecue Association in January on just this topic, on where is barbecue going next. And I think this is the direction it's going. I know a lot of the hardcore purists are going to be upset with the idea of marinating brisket in Asian flavors and that sort of thing. But I think that's what's going to be happening. I mean, we're pretty creative about cuisine in this country. And there are an awful lot of immigrants and people from other countries bringing their flavors to barbecue. And I think it's something to be celebrated. I have had some really scrumptious food that is not what you would get at a KCBS event.
There's actually a barbecue place not too far from us. I have not ate there, but friends of mine said it was fantastic.
What was the name of it?
I don't know the name of it right offhand.
Because I'm gathering a list for my presentation of restaurants that are doing that kind of creativity.
Don't they at Korean restaurants or Korean barbecue restaurants? Don't they cook right at the table? I think it's more of a grilling.
Your
Isn't it more of a
well,
grilling
that's your
thing?
traditional Korean barbecue. Yeah.
Yeah.
There's a charcoal fire in the center of the table. It's actually sunk into the table with a grid on top or a grill on top. And they bring out very thin strips of meat and vegetables and mushrooms and some dipping sauces, which tend to run in the soy sauce type range, or
Right.
and so you can grill, and they cook real fast. I mean, it's a really hot fire, and it's a very thin piece of meat, and then you dunk them in these sauces, and that's a lot of fun. But those Korean flavors, using things like gochujang, which is a hot pepper paste, and all of the soy-based sauces that come through Korea and China and Japan, those things work really well with grilled meats, and there's a lot of fun things you can do with them.
Well, pig is huge in South Korea.
Yeah.
I mean, it's
all
it's
over
one of
Asia.
it's a staple. Yeah. All right, let's get off pigs. Let's get on to beef. Prime rib. Hey, man,
Where's
the
beef?
first question I want to ask, and I know you know so much. We've got illustrations from Meathead's website coming up too. But the first question I want to start and go backwards. What is the number one, or what are the most things that people do wrong when cooking prime rib? Not right, but wrong.
Well, there are a whole bunch of recipes out there that have all kinds of crazy ideas that, from a science standpoint, I'm not sure they make sense. It's like start the oven at 500 degrees and after 30 minutes turn it down, or the opposite, start at a low temp and at the end turn it up, or turn the oven off and let it just cook from residual heat. The problem with prime rib is that if you think that beef is best at medium rare or in that range, which is 125 to 130, where it's rosy in color, it's not purple and raw. Now, I know a lot of people like it down around 120, which is rare. But medium rare, I think, is its sweet spot. They actually have instruments now out there called the Warner Bratzler machine that can press on a piece of meat and measure how much resistance the meat gives the machine. And it in the 125 to 130 range is when it is most tender and most juicy. And that's medium rare. So if you want it maximum medium rare, that is bumper to bumper, edge to edge, then there's a technique that'll get you there. But if you just pop it in a hot oven, you have this problem of the physics. First of all, it's very important to understand warm air cooks the outside of the meat, but warm air doesn't cook the inside of the meat. It can't get in. So what happens is the warm air heats the outside of the meat, and then the outside of the meat heats the inside of the meat. It builds temperature in the outside of the meat like a battery or a capacitor, and it pushes that energy down towards the center. So if you just pop it in a hot oven, say 400, you're going to get a nice dark brown crust, which everybody wants. But below that crust, you're going to get a layer of brown, then a layer of tan, then a layer of pink, and finally in the center, maybe half the meat is perfect medium rare. So you get this rainbow effect when you cook it at that high a temperature. And the same holds true for a thick steak. The secret, of course, and by now, when I first started talking about reverse sear, people thought I was nuts. How can you? It's crazy. All the cookbooks say you sear the meat first and then you pop it in the oven. But reverse sear is a technique, and I'm just going to touch on it lightly on the assumption that your readers are familiar with it. But you start at a low temperature, and that gently warms the meat throughout. So it doesn't overheat on the outside. You don't get that rainbow effect. You get bumper to bumper, the right color. And then at the end, if you want, you can hit it with high heat. And that's the right technique for doing a prime rib and getting it absolutely perfectly cooked, edge to edge, reverse sear. And the same goes for your, you know, if you're cooking a fillet or you know, a section out of the fillet, gently at first, warm it gently, and then sear the heck out of the exterior and build your crust.
Let me ask you something, and it goes to the science of cooking meat, which I know nothing about, but I do know this. Pete and I did 52 prime ribs last
52
Christmas.
or 55.
Wow.
And they all were good. But what I notice, if I do 1 or 25, it doesn't matter. When I'm cooking the prime ribs and I'm using my thermometer to probe them, I get crazy readings from different parts of the meat. I get huge temperature swings, and it always freaks me out. Tell me what's going on that gives me those wild swings in temperature to a piece of meat that is stationary, sitting in one spot of the smoker.
I'm going to do a screen share if that's all right with you.
Yeah, absolutely.
And
Absolutely.
I don't know, is it showing? Hold on one second. I got to pick the right way. There it is. Stand by 30 seconds.
Okay, there it is.
Okay, this is that rainbow effect that I've been talking about. And you can see this is cooked at about 400 throughout. And so you get this overcooked outside, and then it's cooked properly inside. So if you put your probe in, it's going to be a different temperature at the edges, and then as you move further down and as you move towards the center. Now, there's another factor, and this is a trick that I recommend. We'll get to this in a minute on how I butcher the meat. But if you butcher the meat properly and tie it up in a round bundle, it will heat evenly. But the natural shape of a prime rib is sort of oblong, as you can see here. And so what happens is it's going to cook more. This is such a crucial concept. Here we go. I'm going to scroll down for another picture. People tell you, okay, you cook it for X number of minutes per pound. That's wrong. That's absolutely wrong. The determinant and how long it takes to cook anything, whether it's a prime rib or a steak, is how thick is it? Because the thickness determines how long it takes the energy to move from the outside, from the hot air, to the top layer of the meat, and then to migrate down towards the center. And so this is a picture. These are 4 different prime ribs, we'll say, okay? This one is, the top 3 are all 4 inches, excuse me, they're all 4 inches thick. But one is 10 inches long, one is 8 inches long, one is 5 inches long. And of course, they all weigh different amounts. But the thickness is identical for these top 3 because the heat has to penetrate the same distance. So if you're going by pound, this 10-pounder is going to weigh twice the poundage of the 5-pounder, but they're going to cook at the same time. They're going to get done at the same time. So if you're going by a recipe that says 10 minutes per pound, run, because it's not correct. It's the thickness that determines the cooking temp. Now, the bottom one is different. If you notice, it's 4 inches thick vertically, but it's only 3 inches thick horizontally. So the 3-inch diameter is the determining factor, and that will cook faster than the other 3. But the top 3 will all cook at about the same time because they're the same thickness. And the same, now we go back to this illustration here. Where'd it go? Gonna what's this one? Okay, that's temperature. The shape. So it's going to cook differently towards the edges here than this one here. Now, can I keep rambling?
Yeah, this is good stuff. This is what we want.
Okay, I'm going to tell you how I do prime rib, and that's not for everybody, but this is what I do. I go out and I buy a 7-bone prime rib, which is a whole rib primal. and they cost about $14 a pound. And this runs $200 to $300 or more, depending on whether you're buying choice, top choice, prime, or Wagyu. They're all expensive. This is a very expensive cut of meat, but it's the most flavorful and tender piece of meat on the animal, more so than the filet mignon, which is what we use for Chateaubriand, and we'll talk about that in a bit. So I get a 7-bone prime rib, and I bring it home, and the first thing I do is I cut the ribs off. Now, I know everybody loves gnawing on the ribs on a prime rib, but they're calcium, and the inside of the prime rib is filled with, actually, it's like insulation. It's fat, and some of it is even almost like styrofoam. What you've got there is a heat shield worthy of the space shuttle. And so energy is not going to penetrate that bone side as much as it is the meat side. So if you're sticking your probe in, the closer you get to the bone, the colder the meat's going to be. And anybody who's eaten a prime rib knows that if you've cooked it perfectly to medium rare in the center, when you get next to the bone, it's rare. It's rare, and it can be stringy, and it's undercooked. So I get those bones off, and there's enough meat on those bones. It's actually in between the bones. There's not a lot of meat on top if you cut it off right. There's enough meat between those bones to make dinner for two. And it's just me and my wife here at this house. So that goes in the freezer, and that's dinner for two. Okay, now I've got the bones off. Next thing is I get almost all the fat off. I mean, when you serve a brisket or a prime rib and you leave an inch of fat on there, what's the first thing people are going to do? They're going to cut that fat off. They're not going to eat all that fat. So if you've put rub on it, there goes your rub. You want your rub on the muscle, on the meat. So I get almost all the fat off, and I'll tell you, almost 20% of that prime rib, that very expensive prime rib, is fat. And you cut it off, and I don't throw it out. I save it, I freeze it, and I use it for grinding into my burgers, because I make my burgers 70-30, not 80-20. And that's another topic that we can have fun with. But I save that, and I can use that fat. I can cook it down and make and render it and make tallow out of it. And there's quite a bit of fat that comes off of here, and it's good quality fat. Okay, one more thing I do, and this is going to drive some more people crazy, is if you've ever looked at a prime rib, let's see if I can find a good picture of this. Oh, there goes the rib. Oh, my companion's watching the rib bones there. Stand by. I got to show you the rib cap. Okay. See if I can blow this up. There we go. Okay, here's a prime rib. And now I've trimmed most of that fat off. And there's a little strip that runs along the edge called the nose. And I pull that off, and you can either use it for the gravy, and that's another trick I'll talk about, or you can get the fat off of that, and it makes good stir fry or stew meat. But can you see this crescent shape piece of muscle? There's two main muscles in the rib in the prime rib: the eye, or the longissimus dorsi, and the rib cap, or the oh God, I'm drawing a blank here. What do we call it? Spinalis. Thank you. Jeez. Getting old and my memory starts slipping. Now let's see if I can find a better picture of it in here somewhere. Here we go. That's my prime rib coming off the smoker. Actually coming off the grill, because I start on the smoker and I finish on the grill. This curved piece of meat here is separated. The spinalis is separated from the longissimus by a thick layer of fat. You've all had it. Every time you have a ribeye steak, you get this big, thick layer of fat in there that you got to eat your way around. And usually, because this is on the exterior, it's close to the surface, this piece of meat is overcooked. I'm here to tell you, never let that happen again. That spinalis is the best muscle on the animal, bar none. It is heavily marbled. It's almost like Wagyu. And that's why it's so important that you don't cook it hot and fast and get the gray or overcooked here. that you reverse sear it. And now here is the eye of the ribeye. You can see it down below. The eye of the ribeye and the spinalis separated by that layer of fat. I usually peel the spinalis off. Now that's a pretty good hunk of meat, but I take it off and I freeze it, or I set it aside for just my wife and me, because that's the best piece of meat on the animal. And it's thin. You can see it's only about an inch, inch and a half thick, and it tapers. It's actually, when you peel it all off, a whole full 7-bone rib primal, it kind of looks like a salmon steak. It's thick on one end, thin on the other, and it tapers. But I grill this like I would a flank steak, hot and fast. And oh my God, that's a gorgeous piece of meat. That's a great steak. And a full spinalis is enough for maybe 3 people or 4 people. And it's just meltingly good. Now what I have...
You do that before you cook it or after you cook it?
Absolutely. I do it before I cook it. I steal it from myself, and I cook the eye of the ribeye, which is delicious and it's tender. That's what I serve my guests. I keep the spinalis for myself because I'm a greedy bastard. And he's like
our friends that steal the money muscle off the pork butt.
Yes,
and
same thing.
You're that guy.
And now this is a picture of the eye all sliced up, and everybody loves it. It's fantastic, and they don't have that layer of fat to deal with. So I get the bone off, I get the fat off, and I get the spinalis off. Now I have much less meat, and I have to do the math to make sure I have enough to feed my crowd. But it's just fantastic, and that longissimus muscle, that center section, is easy to cinch up with twine into a perfect cylinder, so it will cook evenly from all sides.
We need to try that. We need to try that on one.
That might be
we've got a grocery store here. It's called Publix, and the week before Christmas, they run prime rib on sale for $6.95. Now it's not, it's select. There's nothing. No, there's nothing special about it.
Bone in, but they'll cut your bones off.
But it's just a great deal, and we could do that with one of those.
Yeah,
that would be cool.
And on a select prime rib, that spinalis is going to be top choice quality.
Mm-hmm.
And by the way, I don't know if everybody's aware of this, but there is a grade called top choice. Everybody knows about select, which is your less expensive standard grocery store cut. Then there's choice, which is a little higher marbling, and is always a great choice, especially for this cut. You don't need to go all the way up to prime, but if you do, you won't be sad. But there's a grade called top choice, which is between choice and prime, and it's very close to prime. And if you can get it, it often is priced around the same price as choice. So that's a good option. So I've got it cinched up into a tube or a round object here.
Wow.
Now, the next step is, and this is important, a lot of people cook these things in these roasting pans like you see up here. You got this big, expensive Calphalon roasting pan with a V-shaped rack. But if you put it in there, the meat that is, here it is down here, the meat that's in there is colder than the meat that's on the top. So that's 240 degrees down in here because the liquid below is around 200. It can't go any higher than 212. Water never goes higher than 212.
Right.
It can't go higher than 212. So if you've got liquid down in here, which usually you do because you don't want the drippings to burn, or if you've got vegetables down in there, and a great thing to do is to build a stock down here. And that is where you put that trim from the nose down in there, and you put some celery, some carrots, some onions, some apples, maybe even throw some beef stock, although it's not necessary. And then when the meat cooks, it drips in here. And now you got your au jus, and that's fantastic. But if you set this in here just above the au jus, it's way different than up here. It can be 50 to 75 to 100 degrees less than up here. So it's not going to cook at the same rate as what's up here. If you lift it up and put it on a rack on top, then you'll get the temperature here and here, top and bottom, much closer. Or if you're doing it on a grill, which is the best place to do it, the meat sits on the cooking grate and your gravy pan or your drip pan goes below the cooking grate. Either, if you're doing it on a gas grill, it can sit right on top of the burners, or if you're on a smoker. Now, I typically like to start it on the smoker and give it about a half hour or so. It doesn't take much to give it a smoky flavor. And I don't like my prime rib too smoky. Then I just take it and move it to the indirect side and let it cook until it gets almost, I take it up to about 115.
Mm-hmm.
Now it's not ready. Remember, I'm shooting from 125 to 130.
Right.
At 115, I move it over to, here we go again. I'm gonna get email on this. My gas grill. I move it over to my gas grill. I got a gas grill that has infrared burners, and it's nasty, 1,000 degrees, same kind of burners that steakhouses have. And I put it over those, lift the lid, because I don't want the energy coming in from above. I'm just going to pound the bottom with the hottest energy I can. Charcoal is fine. Charcoal gets really hot. And then I just roll around 10, 15 minutes on each side, give it a quarter turn, and that builds that dark, crunchy crust. So I've cooked it at a low temperature to start with some smoke, and then I finished it on my grill with high heat. And the reason I mentioned gas grill is now I'm going to tell you another trick I use. Christmas Eve is at my wife's niece's house, and she's about a 30-minute drive. And the whole family shows up. I married this big Italian-American family, and I cook, and I bring and cook the prime rib for dinner. So I do what I suggested. I remove the bones, remove the fat, remove the spinalis, and then I sous vide the eye of the ribeye. I sous vide the longissimus. Now, again, I'm sure your listeners are familiar with sous vide by now, because I remember when I said the words, people didn't know what it is. But it's a technique that's really clever. You put the meat in a plastic bag and evacuate all the air. You can just slip it into water, and that pushes all the air out, and you seal it. And then you set it for 130. Well, the water is 130. So you can never overcook it. It goes up to 130, and it can't go to 131. It certainly can't go to 150. You can never have well done if you set it for 130. And that's the beauty of sous vide. It's precision temperature. So I put it in the sous vide. It's 3-4 hours is all it takes. And by the way, you can stay in that sous vide bath for hours and hours and hours.
Right. And never change it. I'm a big sous vide person. I do a lot of cooking with sous vide.
And so I'll take this baby and I'll sous vide it up to 130. And then when it's time to go to the party, I sous vide it in a beer cooler. I unplug this sous vide. It's a heating device. Mm-hmm. And I close the beer cooler and we go over the river and through the woods. I get to Teresa's house, or Tressa's house rather, and I plug it in and continue to sous vide it. And we're hanging out for an hour or so, eating cocktails and appetizers, and my meat's just fine. And then about 20 minutes before dinner, or 30 minutes before dinner, I go out back, and he's got an old Weber Genesis. I've been trying to get him people send us a lot of grills, and I've been trying to give him, no, this I like. In any case, it's an old beat up Weber Genesis. I turn it on high, lift the lid, and I sear it and bring it in, and it's just fantastic. And this is what it looks like down here. And that's what I served.
That looks good.
That's Christmas dinner a year or two ago. Beautiful dark crust, bumper to bumper, medium rare, fantastic. So that's another trick I use. Now, if I'm just doing it around the house, I don't need sous vide. I'll just do it, in the smoker and reverse sear it. But for over the river and through the woods, that's the trick.
Hey, so I got a question for you. So although I sous vide mine, I also take an egg white and wipe mine down, cut up my own seasons and stuff and put on it. Then I throw it in the oven for about 15 minutes and gives me kind of a great bark on the outside.
Nice.
With all the flavors that I like on it. I noticed in the picture, one of the pictures you showed, it almost looked like to me that you had a lot of fresh vegetables cut or seasonings. I mean, cut
Yeah,
up on it.
yeah. This is let's go right there. You go.
It looked like mine. That's the reason I was
There
asking
you go.
that.
I've got a rub on it, and there underneath is a baking pan with the stock, and that's a great technique if you want a great au jus. Although this thing is so damn juicy, you really don't need an au jus. I mean, the meat is better tasting than any au jus I've ever made. But I do serve it, and a lot of people like it. And what's left over makes a great beef stew or beef soup for the next day. But here's a couple. Now, if you're playing with sous vide, a couple of things I've learned about. In fact, I'm going to be a guest speaker on a cruise in March to Cozumel and Bimini, run by the International Sous Vide Association. And I'm going to be talking about what I call sous vide Q, which is combining barbecue with sous vide, which is what we just talked about. And I'll be doing a demonstration and talking about that. And if you're into sous vide, reach out to me and I'll send you information. Come and cruise with us.
Well, he would Meathead, but he'll be in the Netherlands at that time.
Oh, nice.
But now I'll be here in Ottawa. Okay,
come on down.
I'll be at the gas station, making sure the economy's rolling while you two flamboyant guys are out covering the world in sous vide and tulips.
I'm actually taking a cooking class my first day there in the Netherlands, and I'm there 24 days. I'll be there 24 days.
Oh, wow. That's a long stay.
Yeah.
That's okay. I've got it.
So one of the tricks to sous vide is you absolutely must salt it before it goes in the bag, because salt will penetrate. Salt will go deep. Salt is the magic rock. It's just two little atoms, sodium and chloride. And when they get wet, they split up and they get ionized, and the electrical charges take them to the center. And it takes a long time to salt a prime rib. You certainly should do it overnight if you're not going to sous vide. Give the salt a chance to get in there. Salt enhances the flavor without altering it. Garlic alters the flavor. Sugar alters the flavor. Pepper alters the flavor. Salt just amplifies the flavor, turns it up to 11. But it also interacts with the protein. It's called denaturing. And it changes the shape of the protein, and it helps them hold on to moisture. So you absolutely want, and that's called dry brining. And I'm the guy who coined the term dry brining. But you want to salt it the day before, so the salt has time to penetrate and do its magic. Now, if you're going to sous vide, you don't have to do it the day before. You can do it just a few hours before, because, as you may remember from high school, molecules move faster at warmer temperatures. And since you're putting it in a sous vide bath at 130, those salt ions will move faster and penetrate deeper. But it won't hurt to do it a day in advance. But putting anything else on there before you put it in the bag is not a great idea. I know a lot of people put herbs on it, or oil in the bag, butter in the bag, lemons in the bag, twigs of rosemary. Those flavors those molecules are too large to penetrate. I mean, take it out of the bag, slice it open, taste the center of it. You won't taste any of it. None of it can get in.
Right.
Absolutely none of it. And the same holds true for when you brine your Thanksgiving turkey and you throw all the seasonings and the apple juice and none of it gets into the breast. It only gets on the surface a little bit. Put all those spices and herbs on it when it comes out of the bag. Now you've got them on the surface where they belong, and they're going to add a lot of flavor. But as you know, when you sous vide, it comes out of the bag and it's butt ugly. It's tan. It's not. It needs to be browned. It needs to have a crust. So that's when it goes on the grill or a cast iron pan or something to build your crust, or in the smoker. Now, you could smoke it before it goes in the bag, but again, there's a lot of liquid that comes out of the meat, and all that smoke and all those herbs and everything, 90% of it washes off. So get salt before you go in the bag. That's all you really need. When it comes out of the bag, then you get your rub on there. Then you get it in the smoker. Then you sear the snot out of it. And now you've got superlative meat.
That's in the sous vide part is very interesting. I know a lot of people do it. Pete does. I don't. But let's talk about this, Meathead. If you're going to do your prime rib in a smoker, okay, like I will, and most of the people will. What method do you use? Do you put it a little bit hotter, or do you put it down low and build up?
I'm a reverse sear guy. I'm starting it at 225.
Okay.
I'm letting it smoke, and then when it's close to the temperature that I want, 130, 125, in that range, somewhere around 115, I pull it out and throw it on a grill, a gas grill or a charcoal grill, and lift the lid so all the energy is coming just on one side, and rotate it in quarter turns to build that dark crust. And that's all there is to it. It's simple as can be.
Man, I can't wait.
We're gonna definitely have to try to cut them like he's talking about.
Yeah, well, I usually cook mine a little higher temperature, around 285. But
fine. I mean, it's no different.
But I have seen people do it at a lot lower temperature, and they cook it for a longer time.
Well, almost all recipes on my website and in my book that are smoked, with the exception of poultry, are all 225. Because I just think it's really important for people to learn their equipment. They need to learn how to dial it in to one temperature. So almost everything is at 225. I want you to gain control of your grill, your smoker, in hot summer, in autumn, in winter. Learn how to peg 225. But 250, 285, they're really very inconsequential differences. The only exception I make is for poultry, because there's a lot of fat in the skin, and you need to render that fat to get crispy skin. So I do them at 325 to 350, chicken, turkey, duck. But just about everything else, I tell people 225. Get control of your gear. I mean, I see recipes on websites and books that say, all right, we're going to cook this at 225. And here's another recipe. We're going to cook this at 250. Here's another recipe. We're going to cook this at 285. I don't know that everybody is that skilled that they can dial in those temperatures. Now, if you got a pellet smoker, yeah, okay, you can dial them in. But on a Weber kettle, which is still one of my all-time favorite toys, or a gas grill, it's hard to dial in those temperatures.
Well, the lower temperatures you cook on, if something does go south, the more time you have to fix it.
That's right. That's right. Yeah. I mean, it's easier to catch a bus that's moving slow than moving fast. Yeah, absolutely.
All right. Let's go to this little guy right here. Now we went to our local Sam's Club today, and we bought one of these guys, Meathead.
That's one of the illustrations from my website.
Yes.
I have a really good video, by the way. I have a couple of good videos. There's a really good video of how I prepare the raw meat for the prime rib, which we just got done talking about, how I remove the bones, how I remove the fat, and how I remove the nose, and how I cinch it up and get it ready to cook. I also have a good video that, if you want to bring that back up, that shows how I butcher a full fillet, and that's what you're looking at here. Right. Okay. So you've got all these different pieces, and the Chateaubriand is this centerpiece, and that's because it's just about even all the way. Now you got the tail. I don't know. This is labeled Chateaubriand on the right side. I disagree. Yeah, I think the center.
I think it means that entire.
I'm sorry. I didn't hear you. Your audio was bad.
I think filet mignon is part of the Chateaubriand, correct?
The audio was bad at first. Mine is, I think, accurately labeled. The Chateaubriand is the center section, and it's even thickness throughout. And again, here we go. Thickness determines cooking time. Yeah. So can you bring that again up? Because I got more to talk about there.
Sure can.
Okay. So now the guy on the right that little tomahawk shape on the far right, that you can pound flat, and that'll make a really nice steak because it's still filet mignon and it's tender, but it's just kind of funny shape. The tenderloin tip, you can also pound flat and grill, or you can cut that up and use it for stew meat. And then the chain is this long strip that's on the edge with a layer of fat between it and the others. And that's really good stew meat or stir fry meat. But the Chateaubriand is that center of the filet, and the tenderloin is what it's called as a whole. And you can buy them whole, and I recommend you do, because it'll be cheaper than just buying a Chateaubriand. And then go to my video and I'll show you how to clean it up. And because there's some silver skin on the Chateaubriand you want to get rid of. Silver skin is it's contractile material that will shrink and cup the meat, and so you want to get rid of silver skin. But Chateaubriand, it's, a lot of people really, really love filet or tenderloin, filet mignon, Chateaubriand.
That's me. That's me.
And that's because it is the most tender cut on the animal. And that's because it lies under the ribs and it doesn't work. It's just a lazy son of a bitch. It just does nothing. And so there's no toughness to it. It's just a really tender piece, but it has very little fat, very little marbling. And when it comes to flavor, as we all know, fat is flavor. And so your ribeye and your rib primal has more marbling and is therefore more flavorful. It's a little bit more chewy, but not a lot. And therefore, it's my preferred piece. Although one might argue that the spinalis, or the rib cap, that same name, is just as tender as the filet mignon.
So on cooking the Chateaubriand, are you going to cinch it with twine? And now we're just talking about that center cut.
Yeah.
The most expensive, probably the most expensive meat on the cow.
Yeah.
I would imagine.
Yeah.
Are you going to tie it so we'll get that same coast to coast, that color?
It usually doesn't need it because its natural shape is tubular.
Uh-huh.
But I will put a couple of pieces of twine on it just to hold it in shape. And I'll put a good rub on it and I reverse sear it. I start it at a low temp, bring it up to about 120, 115, 120. And then I move it over to the hot side of the grill and I grill it. I don't smoke it. It doesn't, I like it grilled rather than smoked. So I'll just start it on my Weber kettle. I bank all the charcoal to one side, put it on the other side, the indirect side. Think of the difference as being in the sun and being in the shade. You got the sunny side and the shady side. Put it on the shady side and it'll gently warm. And when it hits about 115, roll it over the hot coals, give it all she's got, Scotty, and crank her up and get that dark crust on there. And away you go. And I mean, everybody loves it. Everybody.
That's a short cook too, isn't it?
Yeah, it's much shorter than the
prime rib.
The prime rib, because it's much thinner. And again, thickness determines cooking time.
Now, what we hear at the store a lot, and it's the same thing we hear with brisket. I've never cooked a brisket because I'm afraid I'm going to mess it up. I've never cooked a prime rib. I've never cooked a tenderloin because I say I'm afraid I'm going to mess it up, and I don't want to mess up a piece of meat like that. And I know I try to reinforce people that they can do this. You just have to spend a little bit more time with it, a little more attention. What do you say to those people that that kind of lack the confidence, but they probably have the skill?
How are you going to love this? I tell them, go get this. Go get my book. Or go to, this article.
That's the information.
It's there. I'll hold your hand. Or I was scrolling past a web page when I was sharing the screen. A lot of this technique and this concept is on my website, AmazingRibs.com. and you get it for free. You don't have to pay to get this. And so it'll hold your hand. It'll walk you through it, and step by step explains the concept, tells you what to do. And if every time you set foot on your deck and start to cook or into your kitchen, you're conducting a physics and chemistry experiment. It's all about physics and chemistry, and throw in a little artistry, if you will. But once you understand the concept that the thickness determines cooking time, the concept that hot air cooks the outside of the meat, but the outside of the meat cooks the inside of the meat. Once you understand these basic core concepts, you can cook anything, and with impunity. You're not going to mess it up. But of course, and this is very important for you as a merchant, you got to have a good thermometer.
Absolutely.
Go by his store and get yourself a good thermometer. You can get a really good, accurate, rapid read, instant read thermometer for $30. If you want top of the line, you can spend $150. You'll get accurate readings in 5 seconds for the $30 one, accurate readings for the $100 one in 1 or 2 seconds. And they're precise. That old dial thermometer that you have in the kitchen drawer that's been there since you were married is a piece of junk. It works with a technology called bimetallic, and it's 2 pieces of metal that expand at different rates, and it's not accurate. You can't, that technology was invented in the 1800s. This is the digital age. You want a digital thermometer. And there's basically 2 kinds. The instant read, where you stab it in, and within 5 seconds, you've got precision read. Or you've got another one that's got a probe that you can insert it and walk away, and it'll give you a continual read. It's nice to have both, but the instant read is, if you can only afford one, you got to have the instant read. And you can stab it as often as you want. It's not going to go psh and deflate. It's not a balloon. You take a 6-ounce filet, an 8-ounce filet mignon. That's your typical filet mignon. It's 75% water. 6 ounces of that 8 ounces is water. If you stab it with a thermometer half a dozen times, you're not even going to lose a teaspoon. So it's just nothing to worry about. Get a good thermometer and stab it often and watch your temperature. And if you get your beef off at 125 to 130, it's going to be gorgeous.
If you do it enough, there'll come a time when you don't need a thermometer. You'll be so good at it that
no, I'm sorry. I've been I've been cooking for years. I'm in the Hall of Fame. I won't go out to my grills without a thermometer. Absolutely not.
Yeah, you're the best. You're the best. We appreciate you so much for explaining prime rib, Chateaubriand.
Hey, this is fun. Are we saying goodbye now?
Yeah, we're saying goodbye.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Well, hang on.
I talking to you guys is like hanging out in a bar. Yeah,
we've done that
here
too.
with my wine glass. Where's your beer, guys?
I've got my.
Oh, you do? Okay.
I've got my one-off Barbecue Central bourbon and Coke.
Bourbon
Barbecue Central.
Yeah,
that's a good podcast. Also, tomorrow night I'll be there too. Tomorrow I'm going to be talking about the painful process of publishing a book about barbecue. I'm gonna if you're thinking about writing a book, I'm gonna tell you why you shouldn't. I'm gonna explain the whole process.
So everybody out there, you've got a book out there they could go get, right?
Again, Pete, there's just this weird tin can metallic sound that I couldn't get.
Meathead, your book.
Are you having the same problem with him?
I can hear you.
Both of you now.
It's probably that connection we've got in
Are you
Chicago.
having trouble hearing Pete?
No, not at all.
No, I'm Pete. Steve, are you hearing Pete just clear?
Yes.
Because
yes,
oh well. Hey, wake me when the internet works.
Meathead.
I made my living on the internet, and the son of a bitch still doesn't work.
So thank you so much. We appreciate it. very much, and we'll get you on again.
It's always fun. Great to be here. Thanks for having me.
You betcha. There's Meathead, direct from Chicago, the great Meathead, Barbecue National Hall of Famer, and you can catch Meathead tomorrow night at 9:15 on the Barbecue Central show with Greg Rempe. If you can't get enough of Meathead tonight, by golly, tune in tomorrow night and you'll get plenty of it. Let's see. Perry says old fashioned for me right now. There you go. Everybody tell us what you're drinking. Terry Noel, you're so welcome. You're so welcome. All right. Pete, it's time. It's time to do the pictures.
Yeah.
And we have got some great pictures. You guys have done so great. I mean, just so great this week. And I'm going to start. Billy Holland has been experimenting with grilled fried chicken. And here we go. Billy Holland. That's it, coming right off the grill. Tell me, does that not look just fantastic?
It does. It does. And the chicken, the outside looks very crispy.
Yeah. There it is on the grill. That's the Napoleon kettle that he bought from me a few weeks ago. And there it is right off the grill. That looks as good as anything that Kentucky Fried Chicken puts out. I'm not kidding. I mean, it looks like Kentucky Fried Chicken. Billy, that's beautiful. I don't know what kind of recipe you used. I think probably cornstarch was involved somewhere, but I would dare to say, but maybe we'll get Billy on next week and he'll share that with us.
Yeah.
And that would be fun. Thomas Damon checking in from West Germany, Pete. Look at that. That is a bacon wrapped ground beef with cream cheese in the middle.
It's cream cheese and there's another sauce in the middle of it.
Look at that thing. That's just beautiful.
I forget what was in there with it, but it's amazing what he's put in there and wrapped.
Yep. And not to be outdone, Steve Davidson took some, some suggestions from some people, and he's got his sausage wrap on there. There's also Steve Davidson got some pork butts going on, and look what he's using there. Butcher Barbecue Grilling Addiction Premium Rub, and he's got some pork injections there from David Bosca. And look, there is Steve's finished sausage wrap. Look how beautiful that is. I've never done a sausage wrap. Have you?
Mm-mm.
I can't even wrap a Christmas present.
But I do have a surprise for you to try that I've got. That is some smoked sausage that I found very locally. And so like breakfast sausage that's already smoked. And when you cook it, it's going to have a really smoky flavor. I'm hoping.
All right.
Haven't tried it yet, but we're going to try it.
There's Rondell Thacker's ham. It looks like it's a spiral sliced ham. And Rondell, we were in Sam's today, and Rondell was calling me to brag on that ham. And Rondell, it looks fantastic.
Sure does.
It looks fantastic. He's got a good little drizzle going on it. There it is again. It looks just fantastic. There's Jeff. Jeff Maxwell checked in with some balsamic pork chops, and those look just. I like those. I'll bet those peppers and onions. I'll bet that is some good stuff right there.
Yeah.
That's good eating right there. Let's see. No, that's it, Pete. There's all the beef rubs rather that we've got. We've got the Wagyu tallow as well. All the brines are back in stock at the store. There's Sean and Pete in front of the brine rack. We got those all in store, back in store, all well too. The this little thing right here, Pete, I want to play this again because this is something that was just. Hey, folks, I'm gonna tell you something. There's no rule on how you serve food.
Well, you could put this on here and stick it back in the oven if you chose to do it.
You sure could.
Or actually in a pit barrel, you could put the rack in there
Mhm.
instead of hanging and do it that way as well.
Look at
Oh
that.
yeah, look at that.
Look at that. Oh my goodness. Oh my goodness. Look at that. Look at those chunks. That preserve keeps the peach chunks in it. Oh my gosh. Oh my gosh. Pete, get your camera out and get a picture of that. I'd hate to lose that. We did that Saturday, and that was the Lane's ham kit, and it turned out that was
It was amazing. The ham
peach
was amazing.
caramel, salted caramel peach drizzle.
Yeah.
And you mix that with butter, a stick of butter, and brown sugar, and you pour it over a ham that's already been cooked. You're just basically warming it up, and we've got that available. And I'm telling you, folks, if you're not a ham fan, you'll be a ham fan,
Yeah.
won't they, Pete?
It was amazing.
You will be a ham fan. Don't forget, December the 21st at 9:00, we're having our prime rib and Chateaubriand workshop. Marcus Garner, the chef and owner of Wine Down, is going to join us, and Marcus is going to do a live demonstration on trimming the prime rib and trimming the beef tenderloin into a Chateaubriand, and he is going to bring everything to make his béarnaise sauce. So that's going to be a fun time. We've only got, Pete, I think we've only got like 3 spots left.
Yeah, and we have how many?
We'll have 30.
Yeah.
We're at 27 right now.
Yeah.
We'll have 30. The only 3 spots left. You can text me or call me at 423-593-6588 if you want to get in on this. It's going to be a special. We're going to have Bloody Marys, smoked Bloody Marys. We had a big request for that. You guys did great, so we're going to do that again. And we have Bloody Marys, and we're going to have a real informational little program for prime ribs and Chateaubriand. It's going to be the weekend before Christmas on the 21st at 9 in the morning. It only lasts about an hour, hour and a half. So it'll be a lot of fun. And we'll have, Pete and I will have samples before. We'll cook some prior to the event so that you can do samples, and then we'll of course we'll cook the demos, and then we'll have samples throughout the day too. So that's going to be a lot of fun. That's going to be the 21st of December at 9 in the morning, because we're going to be busy that day. We're going to be busy that day. We're going to sell grills that day, by God. And I wanted to just show a few pictures here, Pete. That is my mother-in-law's mother. She, back in the 20s. I mean, we're talking about
Yeah.
back in the 20s. She did the original table dancer. She
No, that's pretty bad right there. My mother-in-law's mother. Oh,
it runs in the family.
oh.
How many times have we pulled Barbara off the table? So that's what they did in the 20s. That's a Christmas dance, a post-Christmas dinner in Oak Ridge, Tennessee, and they're just flat doing it to it. And this is another thing, Pete, that I thought was really neat. This is a formal dining setting from 1925. This is if you went to somewhere fancy like Pete's house for dinner. This is what he and Connie would put out. This is they've got 3 forks, an entree fork, a fish fork, and a meat fork. They've got their napkin. They've got a service plate. You've got a fruit little fork on the right hand side for fruit. You got a soup spoon. You got a fish knife, a meat knife. You've got sherry, water, and champagne as your beverages.
And nuts, and some nuts.
Yeah, and nuts in the middle. Isn't that neat?
Yeah.
I thought that was. I stumbled across that in my research tonight, and I thought I'd share that with everyone.
Meathead is a wealth of knowledge too. I mean, you think about some of the stuff he studied, Steve. That guy could give you some history lessons, I'm sure, just like that.
Oh yeah, he's great. Meathead's great. I've known him for a long time, and
I like his philosophy of cooking as a science. Right. I mean, everything, if you listen to him, that he talked about was all in science. I mean, it was.
He is, he's a very accomplished person. We never even we didn't touch on his wine,
Oh yeah.
the conversation we had before we went on the air.
Right.
He's fascinating. He's fascinating. All right, good deal. We're going to get out of here. Don't forget, everybody, come back, check back with us Saturday morning at 10 for the 20 at 10 show. We'll be on, and we'll be there all week long. So whatever you need in the barbecue world, we've got it at Al's Nest Barbecue Supply in Ottawa. And we'll see you all during the week, open till 5. We want you to come by and buy some things. A lot of Christmas gifts there. Come see us.